revenge arcs in anime and manga morally good or evil? Well, although on the surface this might seem like a simple question, in actuality it's a bit more convoluted. So before I'm able to answer it, I need you to ask yourself, have you ever wanted to get revenge? Even if you've never acted on it, you've probably toyed with the idea of getting back at someone for something that they've said or done to you. And I'm not calling you out because I've definitely been there too, but understanding the fact that revenge is a natural human emotion might help us understand why people are so obsessed with the concept in the first place, and why many of the most popular anime and manga use revenge as a core theme in their work. So to prove this, let's take a quick look into 3 of my favorite revenge stories in all of fiction. It's often easy to view revenge as a good concept when it's enacted in proportionality of the crime committed, or as some might call it, morally just revenge. And personally, I can't think of a series that demonstrates this form of revenge better than Berserk. So without going too far into spoilers, the story of Kentaro Miura's manga follows Guts on his journey seeking revenge on Griffith, who betrayed him and sacrificed his comrades in order to obtain power which would aid him in his dream of one day having his own kingdom. And if you've seen or read Berserk, then I think you'd agree with me when I say that Guts is easily justified for wanting to seek revenge on Griffith. Having said that, the reason why this sentiment is so universal is because it's almost impossible to make an argument for anything other than Guts' revenge being proportional to Griffith's crime. And even though one could technically say that morally Guts is still in the wrong considering his main objective is to end someone's life, especially towards the end of his journey, it's hard to not have your views start to align with his, since we almost never see Guts go out of his way to harm innocent people in order to obtain his ultimate goal, resulting in his method of revenge feeling morally just. But what would happen if, because of Griffith's actions, Guts chose to take out his revenge on innocent people? All of a sudden, it becomes a bit harder to cheer him on, which is due to the fact that even though his reasoning remains justified, the methodology of his revenge would greatly impact the way in which we interpret its morality. Don't believe me? Well, lucky for you, there's another series which was also built up around the concept of revenge, but chose to take a slightly more morally ambiguous approach to its storytelling. You see, Hajime Isayama's manga Attack on Titan starts off not all too dissimilar from Miura's Berserk, as both stories focus on the concept of loss and how it can often cloud someone's emotions, filling them with the idea that the only way that they can enact some sort of cosmic justice is by getting revenge on their wrongdoers. But for Eren, the way in which he ends up getting revenge isn't quite as cut and dry as the way in which Guts chooses to do so, since even though by the end of the series Eren is more or less successful in getting his revenge, he's pretty messy in the way he goes about it, as he ends up killing roughly 80% of the world's population in the process. And due to this reckless abandonment on the value of innocent lives, Eren's actions feel a lot less like justice, especially when compared to Guts. And as a result, as the story of Attack on Titan continues, it becomes increasingly more difficult to root for him, which raises a question: does a lack of proportionality within Eren's revenge make him evil? Well, some scholars, such as Stanford University professor Eleanor Prosser, might argue yes. Quote, "The surrender to revenge is seen as a surrender of reason, demonstrating that Eren's true evil isn't innately in the fact that he wants to seek revenge, but rather in the fact that because of his need for revenge, he allows himself to succumb to his emotions and in the process surrenders all control of his ability to reason," which, at least for me, left Eren's character feeling a bit immature and overwhelmed, indecisive yet impulsive at the same time, resulting in his actions culminating in a tragedy far beyond his initial intentions. So why was he unable to simply just walk away from his revenge? After all, nobody was forcing Eren to end his journey with more bloodshed. Well, in all honesty, the answer to this question is pretty simple, because for most people, forgiveness is unfortunately much more difficult than revenge. If you ask me to define forgiveness, I'd argue that it's a refusal to cause harm to someone who's previously harmed you despite what your emotions are telling you to do. And by this definition, choosing to forgive someone is what most people would consider a morally good decision. Even so, morality isn't always the same as satisfaction, since the morally right thing is often the complete opposite of what's personally fulfilling. However, if you were to ask Thorfinn, the main character of Makoto Yukimoto's Vinland Saga, he'd argue that forgiveness can actually be both, which is why Thorfinn is easily one of my favorite protagonists in not just anime and manga, but all of fiction. Since although his journey starts in a near identical way to characters such as Eren, where the two differ is in the way in which Thorfinn is able to grow and understand that causing further bloodshed will only ever result in an endless cycle of violence. Whereas at least for him, choosing to walk down the path of mercy could only ever result in him living a truly fulfilled life. So having said all that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow for more, and I'm curious, so let me know down in the comments your final opinion on whether or not revenge arcs in anime and manga are morally good or evil. But as always, it's been Otaku Haven, and until next time, signing out.